Hey everyone, I'm Cason Sharpe. Welcome to another edition of Happenstance, ephemeral reading series curated by myself and co-hosted by Parkdale Hall. Really excited to be here. Thanks for tuning in. Or if you're tuning in after the fact, thanks for tuning in after the fact. I'm here on Queen West in Parkdale in front of the beautiful Parkdale Hall, which is now home to an antique market and a coffee shop and a cannabis store. But once upon a time was a movie theater, and I'll let our featured reader maybe tell you more about that. And our featured reader today is someone I'm really excited to be here and who agreed to join us, Gabrielle Marceau. Gabrielle is a writer, editor, and critic based here in Toronto. And she's also the editor-in-chief of In the Mood magazine, which is an online journal of film and pop culture. And so I think it's really fitting that we have Gabrielle here to read for us in front of this beautiful old theater where many movies once were played. So without further ado, here's Gabrielle Marceau.
Hi, everyone. It's a real thrill to be invited to read. I don't often get invited to read. I'm primarily a film critic, and we're generally not encouraged out in public, let alone to do public readings. So this is very exciting. We are, as Cason mentioned, we're in front of a movie theater. It used to be called the Parkdale, and the first part of the century, this was a movie theater, and like a lot of movie theaters in the city, it has shut down and it's now an antiques market, and sometimes they sell records, things like that. So not a bad trade, but we are losing our movie theaters. So today I'm going to read an essay about film going, about watching movies, and it's called Main Character. I remember scrolling through Tumblr and seeing a series of images over and over again. A woman appears out of the darkness of a carved wooden door. Her dress is dark eggplant, her hair disheveled, and her face gaunt and pale in a way that make her look sickly in the film's Technicolor. Her eyes are wild, rimmed in black and red, and lit up with spite. The wind picks up her hair, splaying it out Medusa-like, as her gaze fixes on her rival. When I finally saw Pressburger and Powell's Black Narcissus, about Sister Ruth who turns monstrous with jealousy after a man disturbs the peace of the convent, I was distracted waiting for the moment I had seen so many times. That image I couldn't scrub from my mind. Even after having seen the film numerous times, I still only remember this brief scene clearly, which ends with Sister Ruth falling off the vertiginous cliff to the sound of a booming church bell. The rest of the film fades out. Over the years, I've become a kind of scavenger for these moments, thinking of them as marbleized versions of cinema, the overwhelming and inarticulable way that a moving image can affect you. Think of the first time you saw sex on screen, or death, or the first time you felt longing. This phenomenon of grabbing onto a fragment in a film until it becomes more significant than the film itself is at the foundation of cinephilia. But is this attraction a Freudian fetish, a phenomenological event, or an effect of the indexicality of the photograph? The way an image, as the product of light, reacting to physical presence, carries some existential trace of its subject, like a footprint or a shadow. I found none of these explanations satisfactory, perhaps because I resented that there was so much documentation of a phenomenon which I felt was mine alone. These fragments were uniquely mysterious, possible only because of the deep currents of feeling and experience that are singular to me. I keenly felt that some essential part of my personality was forging itself on these moments. A few years ago, a group of friends and I traveled to Rochester to watch films in a mansion that once belonged to George Eastman, the founder of Kodak Film. The films are screened on nitrate prints, a stock that has been out of use since the 1950s because of the extreme flammability of its chemical composition. The stock is appealing because of this frisson of danger, but also because it is gorgeous. Its vibrant colors, silvery blacks and whites, an incredibly clear depth of field. The last film of the festival was a print of a 1950 𝗏𝗏𝗶𝗹𝗶 film, Gone to Earth, about Hazel, a young woman who lives in a hut in the woods with her pet fox, and who has an abiding and profound connection to the natural world, but finds herself torn between two suitors, one refined and gentle, one pompous and sexually charismatic. The film is intensely beautiful, but how to describe it? Maybe I'll try one scene. Hazel walks up a hill to meet her lover, carrying her shoes and a handful of red carnations. The sun is low in the sky, and she looks towards the horizon. We don't see his face when he arrives, only his shadow creeping over her, like the vampire's hand in 𝗠𝗏𝗏𝗏, and then she's in the dark. Then we see her bare feet, and crushed under his boot, the flowers she had dropped. But again, this fails to describe the film. The words fall flat despite how the scene still feels hot in my mind. But what I can explain is the ending. When the wild-hearted protagonist, literally fleeing the forces that wish to contain her, she falls suddenly, howling and clutching her beloved fox, into a sinkhole to her certain death. Outside the film, while my friends decided on which restaurant to go to for dinner, I ducked behind the wall of the museum's garden and cried. I noticed my interest in seeing films had all but disappeared after the screening, as if I were desperate to protect some piece of that feeling in the garden. That passion was the only worthwhile thing, and that I had been living a life so estranged from myself that I would die without having fiercely pursued my own life, settling only for a shrunken, desaturated version. Some glint of true life had appeared in the corner of my eye, and I was afraid that if I looked directly at it, it would disappear. Hazel's fall pursued me, and I began to think of other falling women. Alice heading down a rabbit hole in a perpetual dive that warps her sense of time. Or the painting by Frida Kahlo that depicts each stage of society woman Dorothy Hale's jump from her 16th floor apartment, unfurling before us in its unstoppable tragedy. Or Anna Karenina on the train platform, overcome by a bad idea. I don't even have to look far beyond Gone to Earth to find more falling women. Pressburger and Powell have a habit of it. There is, of course, Sister Ruth's fall in Black Narcissus, and the ballerina in Red Shoes, who is forced to choose between her lover and her great love, dance. In a fugue state, while the opening coda of her signature ballet plays, she performs the steps which lead her off the balcony and in the way of a moving train. It is hard, once you have seen a beautiful image, to not kill it. You can replay it in your mind, dream about it, try to recreate or explain it. But these are just shadows, faded like the photocopy of a photocopy. Cinema is about death too. The film strip risks being scratched from the moment it is lifted into someone's hands. It fades every time it is shot through with light. It decomposes and burns. Or films simply languish in digital storage unwatched, or are yanked suddenly from streaming services. Across cities, theaters continue to close, turned into concert venues or grocery stores. After the screening of Gone to Earth, someone mentioned that the print of the film, which shrinks microscopically every time it is screened, had gotten to the point where it may not be able to fit through the projector, and we would be the last audience to see it. I think of the film receding into the distance, the image contracting like a sponge being wrung out. In films, the falling woman makes herself a main character just by the force of her final act. She is the dramatic locus, the black hole of narrative. I always long to be the protagonist, the falling woman, impelled by unruly passions, driven by beauty and desire, flung under a train, turned to stone. But ultimately, my temperament was more that of an observer, and this inclination turned into a vocation, and now I write about film. Lately, I've been watching films with fewer opportunities for divine drama, closer to my actual life. In the space of the day, while picking up a book from the library, folding laundry, lining up our shoes by the door, or slipping my subway card back into my wallet as I step through the train trying to find a seat. I catch myself imagining what this would look like as a film. I'd like to give these moments the close reading I give these film scenes, these fragments. The things that fill up our world, that keep us from falling through the cracks. The textures of daily life and its small disappointments and revelations. These have become the scenes I want to watch. Thank you.